the more common use case that I've heard is sort of the data activation part, which might be a good segue into the data activation agentic use case where, quality may not be as big of an issue. The data is, out there pretty fine. Of course, data is not perfect, but having access to that data and like actioning upon it has been challenging. And I think that's where uh, on the marketing automation platform side, we've sort of evolved from, building audiences using SQL to like drag and drop filters to now uh, prompt based potentially, right? Like audience
Hmm.
building with some of the newer tools out there. And I think in terms of data access to, right, there in the past have been here in the space for a decade. Like earlier, I used to remember like for every single field that I used to need to like personalize the emails, right? I mean, it still exists today, right? Like there is a heavy reliance on the BI data engineering team to sort of make sure that calculated field, that attribute exists. Then like doing some work to like make it available in a format that fits the marketing automation tools format. And then, right, like there is some process of like getting that data in the marketing automation tool. And I think now we're seeing a lot of not just like, I think tools, I would say like general tools without like the AI part, right? Like, which is making it easier to like activate data and like having marketers access that data like easily and like maybe like one click import the field into the ESP. But then now there is a lot of, and but that, I think from what I have seen, that still like requires some BI engineering, help and like figuring out the tables are mapped and like talking to each other. But now I'm like seeing a rise of now the AI agentic tools, which like really make it like a prompt based, say like I need so and so field. Can you like calculate it, create that field, and then map it to my ESP? So all of those like multi steps are happening in one go, which is like super exciting as a marketer to be able to like access that data without that BI ticket and like getting it into our ecosystem. So I'm super bullish on that part because we all talk about like personalization, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about it. Um, but again, for personalization too, we need that access to data like pretty fast. So yeah, curious, what have you seen? Like, do you feel bullish on that use case, and what have you heard?
Yeah, data activation is really interesting because, just a couple of years ago, the whole category was just called reverse ETL. Like it's just recently just been kind of rebranded as data activation. Makes more sense. Like it's what we're kind of doing with reverse ETL tools in the first place. But yeah, like I've been a user on the in-house side of this like latest wave of technology where we were using modern marketing friendly UI drag and drop builders, and it removed a lot of that SQL from the picture. And so, all these reverse ETL tools that call themselves data activation, a lot of them are lumped into like bigger customer data platforms now. But a lot of these tools, like you said, like still need analysts or engineers. Like I was always, I could always like stretch it, but I always got to a point where I was like, like I still need that other thing out of the warehouse, or we need to calculate that field now. It's not perfect in the way that it is, or we need to like tweak the format of it before we can push it into our automation platform. So you kind of teased this out a little bit, but these like new tools in the agentic AI space are thinking about like using natural language to skip the SQL part and like altogether data engineers. Like I'm still kind of skeptical about that part there. But some of the claims on the websites that I've kind of researched are like some of the features or the potential use cases there are like gather and understand data from different sources, analyze and process that data, figure out what needs to be done next, take action automatically based on the analysis that's been done from the agents. So like activating marketing campaigns, generating reports for you, updating customer segments for you automatically because there's a new data field that came into the database. And they do all this without constant human help or manual coding or SQL like updates, and they're following
Mm.
goals or instructions given to you in plain language. So it sounds like theoretical in a way. I know there's some tools in the space doing it today. Some of the examples are, wide variety of Martech and data. Like we just talked about data quality, and I feel like that kind of fell into one category. Data activation overlaps with a bunch of different areas, right? Like at data warehouses and data lakes like Snowflake and Azure and IBM Watson. Snowflake has a data science agent. You kind of talked about that, like they're using NLP to democratize access to data, or that's kind of the language around it. But yeah, like there's a lot of overlap with reverse ETL tools, composable CDP, GrowthLoop, for example. We just had a couple episodes with folks in their team. They're like they have an audience agent and a journey agent that are automating some of this stuff. But I think that, you named Zapier in your previous answer there. Like there's a lot of overlap with iPaaS vendors when it comes to activation also. Like Trade.ai, Workato, Zapier, they fall in this category too. Like we had Trey on the show. They completely pivoted away from visual builders or they pivoted away from being just an iPaaS to a visual builder to manage AI agents. So the space is changing a lot, and I think that there's even like other categories like content management platforms that are playing in this space. Like look at Content Stack. They have like a real-time data activation solution, but they're almost like a bigger enterprise like DXP platform. But there's like product analytics tools like Amplitude that have data activation features, warehouse native capabilities. So yeah, it's a weird one, data activation, because like there's so much overlap with all these tools. Like I wouldn't be surprised if in like a couple of years, like what does this data activation category look like? It's just like
Hmm.
it's solution. It's not a category anymore, and it's just lumped into a bunch of existing Martech.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think um, um, the part that marketers do after they get access to the data is also now having, right, like personalization agents or decisioning agents, right? And so I think there is sort of a question to be asked on, yeah, like, do you spend time on like, activating data one at a time, or really focus on some of the personalization agents that, you give one time access to like all your data, and then like it figures out, right, like um, what's the like content mix and like subject lines, right, combination, like what do you send? And so I do think like right now for the next 1 or 2 years, like, yeah, we should like it's saying like use case specific, like where are you spending the most time on, which is the biggest opportunity to like bring a step function change, either in operational efficiency or like revenue generation, and like sort of prove that out and go from there.
Hmm.
Um, but I think just to like close the loop on data activation, I will say one other trend that I've observed. Um, there is another startup in the space called Sortment, and there are like probably other players out there that I'm not exposed to, but they do claim to sort of being able to like activate the data without potentially a data engineer. But what's even more interesting to me is like many startups that I am talking to are offering to sort of co-build some of these like journey agents or like um audience building agents, right, where I think from a business standpoint there might be like a resource crunch internally, right, on, hey, am I going to be able to get like AI engineering resources to build out my specific use case? And I think that is where there is sort of like like a conversation to be had about build versus buy. But then a lot of these startups are like now approaching saying, hey, like we don't have this agent, but we could co-build this with you for your specific use case, which is like kind of exciting, but also scary because like we're kind of the guinea pig. But I am like entertaining, or like even like, at least discovering and exploring, because even if we might not end up building, like at least it gives us like exposure into like what I earlier said, like what's possible. So yeah, really, uh, really interesting out there.
Yeah, free shout out for Priya there at Sortment. We were chatting by email a little bit, and he was kind of updating me on like when they started, they're like almost competing with customer engagement platforms and automation tools, right? And you said that they've really positioned themselves now to like, we don't compete with ESPs and customer engagement tools anymore. We're kind of like an add-on, and we're the first AI data agent built for lifecycle marketers. So it's always fun, like looking at the product marketing
Yeah.
messaging for some of these folks. And I know you guys are friends, so maybe you've gotten feedback on some of the messaging there, but it's an interesting space for sure. I think is the right call to not necessarily go head to head against like some of these bigger platforms. The question mark I have there is like, what happens when some of the bigger players in the space just like roll out a data agent built for lifecycle marketers, and it's already ready to go in the tool itself, and they're an add-on tool. And so anyways, the space is really interesting, activation in itself.